Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jerrel. I develop games for a living. In the past, I've worked as a digital technology and product development consultant at industry level. Today, we're going to discuss further the situation regarding Sony PlayStation discontinuing its support for physical media. On the PlayStation platform moving forward, there will no longer be any physical games. This is not about helping an industry revolutionize and move forward. This is a cost-cutting measure and a business optimization for PlayStation. They have not been doing well financially due to incompetent leadership that doesn't know how to lead a company in this industry and has been incurring loss after loss after loss due to making poor decisions, such as overinvestment in games as a live service. In the industry, we have a term called eating someone's pie. And that is when someone drops the ball, you can basically step in and eat their pie, or even while someone is offering a product or service, you step in, and even if your product or service is not as good or better, you can still take some of that business. So Sony has dropped the ball here, and there's a strong opportunity for their competitors to eat that pie. If Sony does not reverse course on this strategy, not only will it have negative effects on the industry overall, but it will open up an opportunity for their competitors to eat their pie. So why is this bad for the industry? Discoverability is a huge part of the games industry. Preservation and accessibility, being able to pick up games at a lower price, especially when customers are younger, they don't have a lot of money. Not everyone has a huge amount of expendable income, so many people are able to get into games and they become invested in particular intellectual property because they picked up a game either pre-owned or maybe they borrowed a game from a friend. And as those people grow up and have their own jobs and they accrue their own disposable income, they then are able to become participants in that ecosystem, and those people can then buy the products in the future. So this is something that Sony, it seems, doesn't have any care for, but this is an important part of the games industry. There are so many people out there who are buying games today that weren't able to buy games in the past, but they were able to borrow games or pick up games that were pre-owned and cheaper. So for the longevity and the health of the games industry, it's important to have physical media to allow for this. The competitors that Sony will have to contend with are Xbox and Sony. Xbox is currently rumored to have an upcoming platform that will be digital only, but there are rumors that Xbox will be employing a system wherein players will be able to use their physical discs and to turn those into digital copies which they can play on their system. So this is not a great solution long term. This is a band-aid solution, and it's following the same very destructive path of PlayStation cutting out physical media. Nintendo at the moment is in a position to eat Sony's pie. They can step in and say, well, people want physical games, people want physical media. If Nintendo were to continue exploring that route and offering physical options for games and to really, really push that button and let people know, hey, we will continue offering the physical media that you want. This is your copy of the game. It can never be taken away, and we won't just increase the price for you because we see that you're buying a lot of games. I'm not pointing fingers, but there is a platform out there that has shown that they will just experiment on your digital storefront and they will raise prices even if you have a console. If your family member has a console and they open the digital store and you open your digital store, if you've been buying more and that platform sees, hey, this person buys more, they will just raise prices on your games. And if you open the digital storefront on both those consoles, you will see that you will be paying more for your games because they've decided you can pay more because you've been buying more games while you look at the other console and the price is lower digitally. I personally find that to be quite corrupt, but I'm not going to outright literally say who's doing it. But there is a participant that we are discussing today who does that, and there's evidence of that. If you look, you will see people that are expressing this experience, and it's disheartening to see that kind of dishonesty in the games industry. But I won't say exactly who that is, but I think you are intelligent enough to put two and two together. So I feel Nintendo has a strong opportunity here to really, really step forward and say we will continue supporting physical games. This is your physical media. You really need to understand what the audience wants and what effect that your approach, your business approach, will have on the health of the industry here. We are seeing more and more people online saying that they are canceling their PlayStation subscriptions and they are picking up a Switch 2. It would behoove Nintendo to continue supporting and to really, really push that issue with physical games that belong to you. The physical media belongs to you. There is a previous console manufacturer that I would like to discuss, and that is Sega. There is room now for Sega to re-enter the console market. And if I were to be serving as a consultant on that, this is the advice that I would share, is to explore a niche that the other console manufacturers are not doing so great at. So if we take a look at consoles like Atari VCS, that was released a few years ago. It is Linux-based, and developers are able to produce, they can take their games and produce a Linux build, and they can deploy that to the Atari VCS. I myself have created a version of one of my games for the Atari VCS, but it has not been able to launch. I'm unable to discuss why due to NDA, but unfortunately with the Atari VCS, there are bottlenecks in the submission pipeline that make it very, very difficult for developers to get games launched. Even though they've made them and they've done all the work and they've submitted everything, they've gone through all the process, there are bottlenecks that can prevent their product from being launched on the store. And it's unfortunate because the Atari VCS, I think, is a very, very cool platform. It's a great concept. And if the pipeline was different, I believe that this would be a very strong platform for independent developers to ship their titles on. If we look at platforms like Meta VR with the Quest headsets, this is Android based. So developers can take their products, create an Android build, implement the SDKs, and they can ship their titles on the MetaQuest stores. So that is a strong option for independent developers. What Sega can offer is a strong platform for independent developers to get their games on, but a curated experience. So one of the major issues with the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 is that there is a flood of slop. There is AI garbage is what it is. It's just generated trash. It is trash, and it is very unpleasant to explore the Switch eShop because of that. You have to wade through so much garbage and slop. There's a lot of low quality stuff that is not made in good faith, and this makes it very bad for discoverability. With a Sega platform, if it were based on something like Linux or even Android, this would open up the opportunity for independent developers to easily and quickly take their projects and to make a Sega version of that product. So a new Sega platform that would be Linux or Android based means that it is accessible and it is easy for developers to work on, but it also means that developers don't have to work on a new platform with a totally different architecture for manufacturing purposes. And for the software side of things, it would make it significantly easier for Sega. So the manufacturing and the software side of things, the operating system, would be very, very accessible for their developers, for their team to create, because it would be something familiar. You don't have to create an operating system whole cloth. Developers would be able to jump on and to offer a strong and focused and curated digital storefront would make a Sega console a very, very strong contender for something that doesn't need to punch against the Xbox. The focus for a potential Sega console would not need to be, oh, you've got to have AAA graphics. Focus instead on the spirit of gaming, of creativity, of fun, and allowing developers to focus on that as opposed to, look, big graphics, everything's so expensive. A Sega console entering the market at a lower price means that it is going to outprice the Xbox, the Nintendo, and the PlayStation in terms of, hey, look, let's bring back, it's the holiday season, there's this new console, parents can buy that for their kids, for their families. And if it was something that was highly accessible in terms of price, you can make your storefront is where you earn your profits. You get people into your Sega digital storefront ecosystem, and you can bring in your legacy titles from your Sega platforms. And if you have an operating system on your Sega that really explores its vintage legacy of its previous consoles, and to bring in the titles that really made those consoles unique, and to put them on a new Sega console, and people can explore those through emulation and they can enjoy those old games and they can share them with their kids and their family. That is something that we really are not seeing very well represented. Nintendo is sort of dabbling in that waters, but trickling a couple old games here and there on the Nintendo platforms is not really exploring this concept fully, and it is something that Sega really can take advantage of. So those are my thoughts on the situation. It would behoove Nintendo to really step in and to jump on that physical media situation. It would be very good idea for Xbox to consider their situation, to consider their effect that they have on the industry and how they are going to be viewed by the general public, and for manufacturers like Sega to step in and to rejoin that race, because there is room in the industry for that. Thanks very much for hearing me out and spending some time with me today. I trust that you will take good care of yourselves. Be well.